am Alen Stellian, the Midlife Empowerment Coach, and today I'm thrilled to introduce Leslie Rasmussen. Leslie graduated from UCLA, went on to write television comedies for Gerald McRaney, Burt Reynolds, Roseanne Barr, Norm Macdonald, Drew Carey, as well as The Wild Thornberrys and Sweet Valley High. After leaving the business to raise her boys, she obtained a master's in nutrition and ran her own business for 10 years. Recently, she's written essays for Huffington Post, Maria Shriver, and She Knows. Leslie loves dogs, is a member of the Alliance of Therapy Dogs, and has volunteered at her local animal shelter. She lives in LA with her husband and 2 sons. She is also the author of the recently released debut novel, After Happily Ever After, which portrays the struggles that millions of women in the sandwich generation face. This story will resonate with anyone who questions whether they made the best life choices and wonder, is this all there is? So Leslie, welcome. I've been so looking forward to our conversation, I have to tell you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
So I want to jump right in and talk about your novel. As I told you, when I read the synopsis, I felt like it spoke directly to me and to so many of the midlife women I know and I coach. So my first question for you is, how was your main character, Maggie, informed by what you or others you knew were dealing with in their 40s and 50s when you decided to write her story?
You know, Maggie came to me in such an interesting way because I, at the time, was raising my kids. I was, taking them into school events, and I had a ton of mom friends. And we would just sit around after dropping our kids off and talk. And I realized so many of us were having the same issues and the same things. And we talked a lot about whether it was our marriages, whether it was anything going on with our kids. And so many things. At the time, I wasn't even thinking of writing a book. And so many things started to come into my head about women in midlife and as our kids got older. And at the time I was doing nutrition, so I wasn't really thinking of putting anything together. And as time went on, I started to really miss writing because that was my major love, my major passion. And I decided I was going to write a nonfiction book. So I actually took a lot of surveys. They were all anonymous. I'd ask people not to put their names on it. I put it online and I had a ton of information. And I took all that information and I actually started to write chapters of this book about women at a certain point in their life and conflict in their relationships and romance in their relationships and their sex lives and all kinds of things. And as I wrote it, I sort of felt like, wow, there's so many similarities in this. And because my background was in fiction, I thought this would make a great fiction book. And to take all these pieces of all these different women and put them into one woman, where I wrote it from the first person, so you could hear her thoughts and you could get to know this person. And my biggest goal was that people would say what you just said, which is I related to this character.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much in what she's going through that I feel I have felt. And I'm hearing from all my girlfriends. So, one of the big ones is Maggie's sense of loss after the empty nest, right? Like, and questioning your role as a woman who has spent a lot of time nurturing your family and maybe like myself, stayed home with the kids, raising children after a career. And there's just so much around the whole role, the whole identity questioning of, who am I if I'm not a mother, if my primary role is not as a caregiver? Is that part of what you experienced and the women you heard from experienced as well?
Yeah, exactly. I also gave up writing television to stay home with my kids. And as much as I wanted to stay home with my kids, it was still tough. And I was still doing freelance scripts here and there, but the business changed and it was harder to do those. And so I was in the same spot. I was sitting around going, well, I can't write television anymore, especially comedies, because the hours are really bad. I really wanted to be with my kids. But there's this push me, pull me thing where you're thinking, I'm giving something up, but I'm getting something, but I'm also giving something up. And so I was also in that position, which is why at the time I went back for a master's in nutrition to do nutrition because I knew that I could do that on my own hours while they were in school. But as much as I did enjoy it, and I did it for 10 years, I kept wanting to write again. And so figuring that out, when I hit that point after my kids went off to school, to elementary school, and I had all this time during the day was when I went through that. And who am I if I'm not writing? And I just pinpulled myself into writing television, which I said, well, you can't do that. So what are you going to do? And so I also went through that a lot of just figuring out, well, what was I going to do? And so that's also with Maggie, her daughter is now, she's 17, she's independent, she's going off to college in the fall. And she's there, she's saying, well, I gave up this publishing career that I would have been very high up and I loved. And now what am I going to do? And who am I? Because I'm going to be mothering long distance. So what does that make me? So yeah, and a lot of my friends who had given up jobs were figuring out, could they go back to them? What kind of career could they do if they didn't go back to them, and what they were going to do on their free time?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're talking about I remember the identity shift for me, leaving corporate America and staying home, and the whole question of, what do you do? And like, and feeling a little frozen and embarrassed to say, I stay, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and then needing to feel like, okay, but then I'm going to be a community volunteer and I'm going to do all this other stuff so that I have something to speak about, because I felt a little ashamed, a little ashamed about staying home, which is so bizarre to think about. I mean, obviously I felt a lot of privilege
that even like doing the volunteer work isn't that easy, so
I know,
you can feel that way. Yes.
Yeah. And then there was the other shift, which is, once I had been used to being sort of a little bit of an Uber mom and the volunteer and all that stuff. And then the kids leave, and then you're like, well, wait, like my whole, sense of self was wrapped up in that identity of mother and community volunteer and the organizer and all this stuff. And like, what now? So that's such a huge question for women. And it sounds like that's exactly what Maggie's grappling with. And she's also got the piece about, which is so fascinating to me, that you actually bring up, what's my purpose? Like that she's actually putting it in those words, because as you may know, that's like a huge thing for me. And what I work with women on is figuring out, what's their reason for being? What's their reason to get up in the morning once you're, once your kids are gone, if that was really sort of what gave you that enthusiasm and motivation. So the fact that you actually have the word purpose in this synopsis was like, what?
Yeah, because she doesn't know what her purpose is anymore. If she's not mothering, she gets confused. And then she's, got this father who's having issues. So she's really in this sandwich generation, but she is losing her purpose with her daughter. And then she's got to figure out, well, I'm also, worried about my father. So she's in this really crazy place in her life at that moment. Yes.
And there's that whole sandwich generation piece, right? Where we talk about that, it's not like, oh, she's going to be free and easy now. Her son's, her daughter's going off to college. So woohoo, I'm not a mom anymore. I mean, you're always a mother, and you still, it's not like your kids are, done. I mean, they'll always need you maybe in a different way. Right. And then you've got the aging parents. If you're lucky enough to have those parents around you, amazing, but there's usually a lot of caregiving and caretaking and issues that come up with that. So she's struggling with that too.
Yes, she is. So, she is.
And then there's it sounds like she's also disconnected from her husband, and like, so the question of, like, is this who I want to spend the rest of my life with, comes up for so many women in midlife, right? Like, you're looking at each other like, I don't know. I don't feel so connected to you anymore. I feel like we may have grown apart, and how do you revive a marriage?
And also their communication right now, the husband's going through something on his own, and he's not really communicating it at this moment. And so she doesn't know what he's going through, and she doesn't understand, but they're both going through a lot. And so, yes, they become disconnected. They still, love each other, obviously, but they just aren't communicating. So she feels even lonelier because her daughter's going to leave. Her father's got these issues, and her husband isn't communicating with her. So she feels like so alone. And since she doesn't feel that purpose, she doesn't know where she is and what's going on. And she becomes overwhelmed with all of this.
Well, and then you've got oftentimes, some symptoms of menopause that make things a little more difficult as you're already grappling with all these changes, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
And then so what else did you learn from all the women that you surveyed or that you talked to, and then from your own experience? What do you feel like were the big lessons that came to the fore that you were like, you know what, I got to make sure to put this in the story?
I learned about some of the ways they had conflict with their husbands, not fights, but conflict. I learned about different things about their sex lives and how that it plays a little bit into this book. It's probably a little bit more exaggerated, maybe, but maybe not. Some people I talked to, it isn't exaggerated at all in the book, and some people might be a little bit. I learned about how people deal with stress on their own and with their partner. And I really learned about women in the middle of their life really figuring out, like you said a minute ago, did they want to be with this partner? I mean, when I hit a certain age, I'm still married, but I had like 3 friends walk away, women, not the men, walk away from their marriages. Because when they hit right around late 40s, early 50s, they started to analyze their lives, and they said, you know what? I don't know if I want to be with this person. I've been with this person. These were long-term marriages, and they'd been with that person since college or right out of college. And they started to say, is this all there is for me until I die? And some of them wanted more romance. Some of them wanted to start over. Because their kids in their mind, their kids are kind of starting up. They're going off to college, or they're going off to their careers or whatever, and they're starting their new relationships, which is what in the book, Maggie's daughter is starting her first relationship. And that's mirroring Maggie, looking at her going, oh, what was I like in my relationships? And, is the daughter's stronger than Maggie is? And she's seeing that. So there is a piece of her also saying, gosh, is this the marriage that I want to be in? And as much as I love this man, we've been together a long time. So I saw a lot of that as it happened. I didn't realize they would actually walk away from their marriages at the time. Excuse me. But I did see some people saying, oh, I don't know, is this going to be my life for the rest of my life?
Right.
And so that really came into play a lot in, between the surveys that I took, and even the women that when I took the surveys, there were women that answered it that were like in their 80s, and they had stayed with their husbands, and their husbands had passed away.
Yeah.
Even they said, I don't know, there were a few women that were like, okay, I loved my husband, but you know what, I'm free. And it was a really interesting thing, because then they were in their minds free, especially if they were caretakers.
Yeah.
They were free to now live a different life than they'd been living over those years. So it was a really interesting aspect that I got from all these different women, that I sort of found a fictionalized story to put a lot of people in it.
Yeah, that's such an amazing way for you to harness your talent, your writing talent, in a new direction with, hopefully better hours, like you said.
Yeah, a lot better hours.
Yeah. So how different was it for you to write? You were a screenwriter, and now you're shifting into writing a novel. I mean, did you have to learn a whole new way of writing, or was it pretty easy?
It wasn't easy. I was used to 30-minute sitcom scripts, which have a beginning, middle, and end. Even if it's arcing over a season, you really have a beginning, middle, and end that goes in 30 minutes and less, actually 22 minutes. So you're talking 40 pages of double space. a novel scared the heck out of me because it's, it can be 300 pages or however many pages you decide to write. It's single spaced and you are the creator of the characters. There's no actor bringing your characters to life. It's only the reader's vision. So you need to make sure those characters are well-rounded enough that the people reading them say, oh, I get who that is. And there's no actor bringing that to them. So they say, oh, that's, so-and-so on the show. Right. I get who that is. I didn't have wardrobe people. I didn't have set decorators. I didn't have anything. I created the entire world, what the house looked like, what every room she walked into looked like. It was really difficult. And in sitcoms, I didn't create my own show. I was on show. So they had created the world. Right. And so you go in and you write it and, everybody pitches out the story. It's not like you're usually ever alone. And so you kind of know you have somebody to go to. There's always your boss that can say, no, that doesn't work. Or you tell them, I don't think this works. In a novel, it's all you. And I truly did not know how to write it. It took me longer than I expected just because I was trying to figure it out. And I tried to do it without an outline, which was crazy because I always wrote detailed outlines. And I think I was scared of the outline. So I just started, I knew what the beginning was. The ending changed from what it was, but I thought I knew the ending. But when I got in the middle, I was just like, oh my God, I have to write an outline because I had no idea what I was doing. So I did take the time to sit down and write the outline and then realized that that would make it so much easier. And I took writing workshops. I went to conferences. I learned from a lot of people. I read books. I did a lot of different things to help me kind of figure it out. And it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of drafts just going, oh, okay, and then figuring it out.
Wow. Yeah, that it sounds like it was really a new skill you had to learn. It was not like you could just say, oh, great, I'm a writer and I've written this, so now I can, it really is a very different genre.
It's a very different genre. I mean, what I did in this book is I did write a lot of dialogue because from my screenplay background, I really like dialogue. I think that it gets you into the characters. I'm not, a flowery writer. So I love those books, but it's just not what I write. Right. So I relied also on my sense of humor. And so this book has a lot of heartbreaking moments, but it also has a lot of humor in it. So I feel like that's real life too.
Yeah, so, that's for sure. Yes.
There's a lot of mom guilt. I mean, it's the same thing with, you're running your kids all over the place and you're thinking, oh my God, I would love a massage. But if I get a massage, then I'm not here for this, that, and the other. So, and if you do it, you're lying there thinking, oh my God, I'm lying here getting a massage and this should be really nice, but I'm thinking about 100 different things and I'm not relaxing. So there's a lot of mom guilt. I think all of us have it. I know working moms have it. I know stay-at-home moms have it. Even when you're home, you still have it.
We all have it, which is, like you said, even working moms have it. It doesn't matter. There's guilt everywhere. This is something we do to ourselves. I don't know if it's a societal thing or how we convince ourselves that we are guilty all the time, but it is something we absolutely, I feel all naturally seem to gravitate toward, is that feeling of guilt, and it's very hard to release it. Carolyn says the relationship between Maggie and her daughter is so nuanced and well portrayed, with all the teenage angst and obstinance and all Maggie's midlife self-doubts. How did you write that?
Oh, wow. I have two sons, so they didn't play. Oh, right. But I was a daughter. And so I remember a lot of those kind of things happening, when I was dating and everything like that, and looking at my parents who had what I considered a wonderful marriage. And they were married my dad passed away 4 years ago, but they were married for 55 years. Wow. And I watched their marriage and how they got along. And, of course they had arguments once in a while, but they weren't like big arguments that I saw. Obviously, whatever else happened behind closed doors, I didn't see it. But they portrayed a way of bonding to each other that I just loved. And so with Maggie's daughter, her daughter is just starting out going through this, and her daughter is strong. And Maggie is just seeing that. And so I think that the mother-daughter stuff, I'm glad she said that, because I was trying to be as subtle as possible, but allow Maggie to see what how her daughter treats the boyfriend and herself, and how the daughter views herself and the confidence in her daughter, and let Maggie kind of see that and reflect back, mirror it back onto her and how she's feeling at that moment in time.
And in a way, she's got to be proud as a mother. She's done something right, raising a daughter who is stronger than even she is, and is able to be in relationships differently than she is. However that happened, I got to believe the mom had something to do with that, in what she, helped her with.
That, and also this stuff that's going on with her and her husband really has been going on for about 6 months. So it's not, you can see at the beginning of the book that they really do love each other, and they have and had a good relationship. It's just what they're both going through. And that's why, a lot of times with marriages, if you're in a very long-term marriages, you're going to have great times where you're both in sync, and you're going to have times when you're not in sync. And it doesn't mean the end of the relationship, but you do have to figure out and how to work through that, and which is communication, which is what they're having problems with at that moment, because of, and the husband doesn't even really know what she's going through at the beginning.
Right.
And they're not discussing the daughter leaving so much and what's going to happen. And they're both kind of hinting at their stuff, but they're not saying it. So it does. So the daughter also saw this strong relationship. And I think that also helps her too.
That was a model for her. Yeah. Yeah. Given that the issues are really cropping up more in the last 6 months, like you said. Exactly. So was there a message or something you wanted to convey to women in midlife through your novel? Was there like I don't know, some lesson or some inspiration that you wanted to provide for women?
I really wanted women to read it and see that it's okay. I mean, talking about the guilt, it's okay to think about yourself and to think, hey, what else can I do? Like you said before, I've done all these things, and now my kids are going, maybe it is about me, and that's okay. I mean, I just wrote an article. I wrote an article that's in Huffington Post right now about menopause, and how that's not supposed to end your life. And in society, right, they tell you, oh, you can't have children, so now what?
Right.
Well, the truth of the matter is, women live longer now. We are all active, or as many of us as possible, hopefully, are active. And we should be able to then not start our lives over, because it doesn't mean you leave everything behind, but you can at least figure out who you are and move forward and say, this is the rest of my life. And my kids are now settled in what their lives. And of course, I'm still their mother. And of course, they're going to come back to me.
Right.
But to have them know even that you have a life.
Yeah.
I wrote this book. I was older when I wrote this book. And so I wanted, people to know that you can keep doing whatever or find something new. You can change complete careers at any age. You really can. I mean, being a doctor may be one of those you may not be able
right.
to.
I know.
But, you can put your mind to something and just try. And if you don't make it, maybe there'll be some offshoot off of that. You may not make this thing, but you might say, oh, but there's this other thing that, is like that. So I just wanted women to know that it's okay to take care of yourself and just to do what you want to do, especially later. If you are raising your kids for a while, it's almost impossible.
Well, and you're such an example of that, given that you have shifted careers multiple times.
I have.
So you're a role model for women also to see, oh, okay, you left one successful career and you got a master's and you delved into nutrition and worked in that field for 10 years. That's like a whole other life, right?
Yes.
And now look at you starting with a debut novel. I mean, that's, and who knows what's next, which is my next question to you. Like, what is next for Leslie? Do you want to keep going down this path and writing novels, or like what's on your bucket list?
I'm actually halfway through a second novel. It's a totally different novel.
Okay.
But it is women's fiction, and it's about 2 women. And I decided that I wanted to keep writing. I will probably write some more essays, because I wrote over 20 personal essays for Huffington Post while I was doing the nutrition. I wrote some on nutrition, but a lot of them were on your first child leaves for college, your second child leaves for college, your last child. I wrote essays about my marriage. I wrote so many essays that I really enjoy them. And then I did this menopause essay for Huffington Post. So I will probably try to find time also to write some more essays because they're fun. I enjoy them. I can put humor in them. They're personal, people can get to know me a little bit more when they read my essays. So yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna do. But I am gonna finish my second book.
Wonderful. Wow. Well, I'm so excited for you. That's amazing that you're launching one and you're already halfway through the next one. So, and you're writing these personal essays, which I think are, so motivating for women to read about other women's experiences and learn from them. So thank you for being a role model to women in midlife and for helping shine a light on, that it's our time. It's our time to get out there and focus a little on ourselves and our self-care.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. And so thank you everybody for joining us today. And don't forget to check out all the links I'll be putting in the comments. And if you enjoy these videos, please watch for more. Until then, be well and stay safe, everybody.